Hey folks, this is Abel James, and thanks so much for joining us on the show. Are you a nose breather or a mouth breather? I sat down with a few old friends recently, and one of them asked, Abel, what is the most underrated performance upgrade in health and fitness? I said without hesitation, nasal breathing. When you learn to harness the power of the breath, you can rewire your entire nervous system, which has vast implications for your health, performance, and even your personality. Today, we're here with one of the OGs in alternative health and natural movement, the creator of MovNat and Breathholdwork, our friend Erwan Le Corre. This episode is both practical and deeply existential, with questions like, are we spiritual beings having a human experience or humans having a spiritual experience? I hope you dig this one. Before we get to the interview, here's a quick plug. Did you know that artificial light from screens disrupts our body's natural production of melatonin by up to 60%, which can lead to poor sleep and mitochondrial damage? If you'd like to protect your eyes from the most problematic wavelengths of artificial light, take a gander at our premium blue blocking glasses from wildrx.com. My Aura Ring sleep data agrees that wearing these blue blockers after sundown makes a massive positive difference in sleep quality. And as a special thanks for being a listener of this show, you can use the code WILD20 for an extra 20% off your entire order. Right now, we're only in the United States, but if you'd like to grab your discount on the highest quality blue blockers around, just visit wildrx.com and use that code WILD20 at checkout, and you'll get 20% off your order. If you're just getting started with blue blockers, definitely check out the yellow tinted daytime lenses. And if you're looking for the most advanced protection, especially after sundown or before sun up, then check out the nighttime red lenses. All right, on to this show with Erwan Le Corre. On this episode, you'll discover how Erwan developed and practiced the ability to hold his breath for 8 minutes straight, why hyperventilation leads to a state of sympathetic dominance, which can be detrimental to well-being, why developing physical capability is a moral responsibility, how to manage your mindset to become more resilient and thrive under stress, the physical, emotional, and mental consequences of breathwork, how to achieve a state of peace, trust, and love through regulating your nervous system, and much more. Let's go hang out with Erwan. Welcome back, folks. Today, I'm honored to be joined once again by Erwan Le Corre, the founder of MovNat, the Godfather of Natural Movement, and author of The Practice of Natural Movement. Erwan holds a U.S. national record in static breath holding with a 7 minutes and 29 seconds performance, and his personal best currently sits at over 8 minutes. So thank you so much for joining us, my friend.
Thanks for having me. I love being back here. It's always a really great pleasure.
I love that our paths have crossed so many times over the years, although we need some quality time together in person, especially after the past few years.
Yeah,
But
we both are one of those few original gangsters of the whole alternative or resurgent um, trend in the United States of alternative lifestyle. You name it, rewilding, keto, cold exposure, of course, MovNat, natural movement, all of it. We were there before even Instagram existed. Can you believe it?
isn't that amazing?
Long time. I've heard this, and it's so true. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
That's the perfect way to say that. And before we get too ahead of ourselves, I'd like to congratulate you on 15 years plus of MovNet. And I've heard you describe it as well as kind of bringing it from a one-man show, one-man vision to something that's really the world leader in many ways in natural movement, which should be, all movement out there and isn't quite yet. We still have a lot of gym rats out there who are practicing under artificial light, etc., mechanical movements. And not that there's anything wrong with that per se, but people do need to get outside a bit more. And you have been such a massive force over the years. So thank you for that.
Yes, that's the idea. Like get outside, do some like more complex, more natural movements, get some sunlight. But gym training is fine as well. It's just a little limited in scope and in results as well.
Yeah. What has it been like from your perspective, kind of seeing people embrace what you were doing out in the woods so many years ago, and kind of incorporate that into your own life? I'll share one example that I saw that I thought was very profound. Let's see, I think his name was Dave Struble, became a MovNat certified trainer at age 80.
Yeah, yes, yes. Some pretty impressive things like that, like people getting certified, which means we're not giving them the certification just because, like, well, you're so, you're much older, therefore we're going to do something about it. No, no, it's just because they passed the test and the exams, and it takes all kinds of people. We have a very, very varied community out there, and all over the world. By the way, we have people in the Philippines, people in South Africa, people in Europe, obviously, North America, South America, China, everywhere, Japan. Um, so that's really fantastic. Originally, it's true, it was a one-man show. I arrived in the US in 2009 with what a very street say from France would be. I just arrived uh, with my dick and a knife, basically. That means, sorry to be that blunt, but that simply means all you got to get started is you and like a little knife, and that's it.
Yeah.
Do something with just that. And I did. And we grew a team, a community. And we brought that concept of natural movement, which nobody knew what it was originally. Back in 2009, I would say natural movement. People were asking me if it was yoga or Tai Chi or Pilates or something like that. Today, when you say natural movement, I'm like, oh yeah, you mean like running, jumping, climbing, doing all these like natural human movements, and that's it. That's education. So to see that growth, and also to see everything that I used to be showing, and I was the only one to show that back then. All these movements outside, crawling, climbing trees, all of that, jumping from rock to rock, running barefoot. Nobody else showed that back then. And today it's all over on Instagram. Whole programs are made about it indoors. And a lot of the words and the insights that I shared early on, where people were like, what is this? And today are shared and replicated by people that don't even say MovNat or run a core, but doing their thing. That is good, because that means influence. That means mission accomplished. Originally, I wanted to bring to the world this idea that we had a whole scope of natural, evolutionary, natural movement abilities that were completely neglected. And the practice of all these abilities where was not something mainstream, was not even something niche. It was just nowhere to be found. And my vision was, I'm going to be the dude who's going to bring this idea that's an old idea, but completely forgotten, back into the spotlight. Give it a recognition that it deserves to whatever extent I can bring it to. And it's happened. And magically, it manifested. It was manifested. So I
Well,
love that, of course.
tip of the hat to you, good sir, because we needed it. And myself included, let's see, I was constantly injured as a runner growing up, and did track, field, cross country, etc. Constant shin splints, IT band problems. And it wasn't until I experimented with running barefoot and relearning how to run that everything changed. And suddenly after a few months of training that way and starting very small, I was able to start running marathons and get all of these personal bests, not just for long distance, but for short distance. And it transformed the way that I move through the world, and in large part due to you. So I seeing that trend also take off years ago, and now people don't necessarily talk about it as barefoot running, but it changed their form back then. So even if you bring that forward into kind of the modern world, changing the biomechanics of how humans move through the world is one of the most powerful things you could possibly do. And you have. So, yeah, wonderful to see that cultural impact. And now you're doing that with breath work and breath hold work as well, which I'm very excited about as well. So maybe we'll say one more thing, because I think this is so beautiful. I've heard you say before, moving outside in a natural way, especially in the wilderness, it's a physical experience for my spirit, and it's a spiritual experience for my body. Maybe you could talk about that just very briefly.
Yes, it's how I feel about it. We live in a very, or even increasingly compartmentalized world, compartmentalized everything. But when you move, and when you move outside, you're with nature, you're with creation, you're with something mysterious and something uh, extremely old and extremely sophisticated, that what's called the environment, which we're part of. So all of a sudden we reunite physically with it. But that's what we are biologically. Biologically, we are a body, we're a unit of life. Spiritually, we're a soul. So we are a unit of spirit. And there's no such thing as in and out of that spiritual experience that we are. It's ongoing all the time. There's no interruption. So typically when we say, oh, I'm having a spiritual moment, it's because all of a sudden we remember the spiritual nature of the life that we are, and the consciousness that we are. But it doesn't mean that when we're not paying attention, we're not remembering that essence, that nature, that we're not. It doesn't mean that we're not spiritual when we're cooking a meal, sipping a cup of coffee, thinking about anything, doing about anything, planning on anything. All of that, all of it is anyways spiritual. And same goes for our biological life. We live in the body, with a body, through a body, from day one until the last day. So both realities of our experience are not dissociable, even when we think that they can be compartmentalized. This is my physical training. Oh, this is my spiritual practice. To me, it never dissociates. So when I'm moving outside, what is the intention to be outside in the first place? Where does that intention comes from? What is the drive for me to want to move and to feel free and to feel capable in that natural, complex environment? It's my consciousness. It's my spirit. You need a certain mindset to want to do that and to be doing that. And so, even though it's my body moving, what's moving my body, the whole drive, the whole intention behind it is my mind. And my mind is my spirit, and my spirit is my soul. It's the same. It's just different words to express the same idea. And similarly, I'm having a physical experience. So physical experience of my spirit and spiritual experience of my body. That's the explanation. You may entertain that insight, and that's okay. That's an intellectual event to think about it. But when you're outside in nature and you can feel the ground through your feet, and you can feel the ground or the bark or the rock through your hands, and you can feel the wind on your skin, you can feel the sunlight, and maybe you're going to see amazing clouds. You're going to look at the horizon. You're going to hear the sound of the river stream. You're going to hear the sound of birds. How is this not spiritual? Hello. Yes. And so if you take yourself there, you take yourself there, and you do it, and then you become that experience that I just described. Just try it. There's no need to try to imagine, oh, does that make sense? Just do it, and it will be revealed to you.
And it becomes a meditation of its own kind, doesn't it? As opposed to training the mechanical in so many ways, where you separate and compartmentalize, as you brought up. I find, especially when I go for long runs or hikes, that you start to get out of your own mind, and you see the joy, once again, of moving the physical body as a spirit. It's a gift to be here and explore uh, the natural world with this, this space vessel that we have. We're our own vehicle for our spirit, and that gives you a larger degree of understanding about the responsibility of being a human and being a spirit that gets to walk this earth. And I've heard you speak as well about um, the moral responsibility that comes along with just being here, and part of that is making sure that you're able to withstand the unexpected curveballs of life and being physically apt and capable in those moments for the people around you, for yourself, for your family, showing up for them. So it's not something that's about vanity and getting bigger lifts in the gym, as or many of the things that you see that are very surface level and superficial on Instagram and on TikTok. It's really about embracing that responsibility, and that gives a lot of purpose and meaning behind how you show up, and also what you do to stay in shape, because it's not about those short-term results. It's about doing this for a lifetime, and that's much easier said than done.
I'm very impressed by how articulate you are about this, and it's absolutely true. And this has been my message that you just expressed yourself for since day one, and as long as I will keep doing this, or my team, and it can be encapsulated in just one simple line. And though I loved everything that you said and all the details, and it's just so true. Um, it is a moral duty, in my opinion. It's a moral duty, not just a biological option. It's a moral duty as a person who is a part of society, or as a person who is a father or a mother or a part of community, to make themselves or keep themselves physically capable to respond to situations of the real world for as long as you can. So it should start early on. It should be part of education in young children. All children, and that's, of course, I'm talking about not a utopia, just an ideal, unfortunately, that is not pursued by any government. That all children, when they leave school, we assume that they are educated, or they have a baseline of education. They can read and write and do mental math, and know all these basics. But nobody expect from them that they are physically capable, that they can operate their body in any meaningful, purposeful, useful way. And that's incredible, because most leave school, the school system, without ever having developed such ability. So they are physically inept. They're not capable. Their bodies are weak. They are clumsy. And that's not a judgment. That's an observation. And that's not some of them. That's most of them. So what society do we end up with when individually it is that disconcerting? So yeah, that's why I say that physical capability is a moral duty. And even as an adult, somebody, let's say, who goes to the gym, and it's much better than doing nothing, and you can get, by the way, great strength or some solid physical abilities if you train in a gym in a specific way, more than a conventional way. But it's still limited. And if you are going to look at yourself in the mirror and be pleased by what you see, that's okay. It's a legit. I mean, everybody loves to feel good about their bodies. But if you go outside and there's not that much you could do, you could not run for distance if you had to. If somebody needed you, you could not even sprint because, I don't know, your knees, your ankle, your feet, or just not, you're out of shape. It looks like you're in shape visually, externally, but there's no cardio there. There is no cardiovascular power. There's no endurance. The mindset isn't there. You couldn't hang from a tree or climb anything. Maybe you'll be afraid. You could not clear an obstacle because the moment you land on the other side, you twist your ankle or you break your foot. And those are elements of capability, and they do require strength. They do require mobility. They do require all these qualities of the body, but also the softwares, which are specific pathways in the brain to enable you to operate that body of yours in those specific ways. If you never train them, you're not capable, or you may assume that you are, but the moment you face the reality of the real world context, and then no, it doesn't work. You're not prepared. So you're gym ready, you're gym fit. That's okay, but real world fit, real world capable, it's the next level. And you have to, I want to say, you do not need to abandon your cosmetics, aesthetics pursuit of a good looking body, but you have to make it not as important as what you can observe you are actually capable of doing with that body of yours in those situations. And even though you may just simulate them out, but at least you have a simulation that tells you, oh, okay, in that simulation I was able to jump such obstacle, I was able to climb such obstacle, I was able to run at that speed while also maybe crawling under that obstacle and whatnot. It's part of your self-esteem. It's part of a personal realism that I believe everybody should possess. And I've been drumming that message for many years. And now I'm not the only one anymore. At the same time, there's still a lot of work to do. It's, but that's what we are here for. We're also educators. We want to share that knowledge and that mindset and educate people.
And you've done an incredible job of that over the years. But one thing that comes to mind is that, even if we did possess some of that natural ability as children or earlier in life, so much of that is coached out of us, even at the quote unquote elite schools. Like I'll offer an example. When I was an undergrad at Dartmouth College back in the day, I had been running outside doing cross country and doing some level of free weights, not knowing exactly what I was doing. But then I took a gym class to fulfill my gym credit during one term.
Gym class as in gymnastics?
Not gymnastics. No, it was like basically a physical education credit. And there were different things that you could do for that. Like one of them was golf and another one was swimming. And this one was Nautilus equipment. So basically a gym equipment, and you're trained to use that for 3 months, and you try to increase your strength over the course of those 3 months. And I found that even though I was training 2 or 3 times a week in that class, by the end of those 3 months, I got slower, I got weaker. And I became less capable training 3 times a week on all this silly equipment. And tuition wasn't what it was today, or it wasn't what it is today. But man, it was not something. I learned the wrong thing from that, right? Like it wasn't the pristine example of progression and moving forward in life, despite the fact that you're being educated. So much of this is our responsibility, unfortunately. I wish that it could be more integrated into traditional education, but in fact, many parts of traditional education coach this out of us. You put everyone in a chair in front of a desk hours after hours, year after year, and no wonder that we're physically incapable by the end of those 15 years of schooling.
At the end of the day, capability is what it is about. Competency, capability. So you can be educated, but you are not knowledgeable. You can be educated, but you're not capable. You can be educated, but you're not wise. So education is a tool, but it's not in itself if it's not applicable, if it doesn't bring results, if it does not really advance your quality of life or your ability of operating who you are better in this life, and it's irrelevant. In the end, it all boils down to what you're capable of, what you know that is experiential, and the wisdom that you extract from it. That's growth. Otherwise, you're educated and maybe you are a jerk, or maybe you're gullible, or maybe you are delusional. All this is possible. You can have a high level of education and really not doing very well in life because of those problems. And others develop a form of education, an alternative form of education, which is in fact based on practical abilities, things that really work, tangible results, and again, ultimately, a form of personal life wisdom.
And going back to that responsibility of kind of having the skills to navigate life. One of the things I did appreciate about my college education that was quite unusual is that you couldn't officially get your college degree from Dartmouth without passing the swim test. There was a wealthy donor who donated enough money to the school years ago, who I believe had lost one of their children who got a degree or was going to school and drowned, unfortunately. And so after that, basically they made it a necessity of graduating. And, you know, passing the swim test and how that's measured is a whole other can of worms that's worth examining. But building that into the certification and the degree of getting out of school, like having the ability to not die if you fall into the water, seems like something that should be part of our education. And it's amazing how many examples we could have about that are completely missing.
Completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. And you see what you intuitively understood back then was okay, the swimming part is actually real. It's directly useful. And you know right away if you're capable or not. If you do gym exercises, you can only, since they do not necessarily directly, and most of the time do not directly correlate with any actual behavior or effort that you need to do in the real life, you can only assume that it's hopefully useful. And maybe you think it's very useful, but you don't know because it's not like, okay, in your physical education, you learn to jump and land, you learn diverse techniques to get on top of a, say, a horizontal bar from a hanging position, all highly practical. And that's the, by the way, that's the whole position foundation of MovNat. It's practical and adaptable. So MovNat being the method I've created and launched so many years ago now, 15 years ago. You don't have to scratch your head wondering, what is this? Is this useful? You know right away. So you get in the swimming pool and you start swimming. It's obvious if you know how to swim or not, if you have the technique and the conditioning or not. So apply that mindset to all other real world movements and abilities or capabilities. And then now you have a very solid foundation for life, for your physical life. So you see, you were very interested in what was realistic. And I was exactly the same, always. And in my physical pursuit, even after school, I kept going for the sports and learning the techniques that had to do with something always practical in a tangible way, in an obvious way. I've learned Olympic weightlifting techniques. Um, I did rock climbing. I did trail running. I did swimming. I did, spear fishing and free diving. You name it, like a lot of different things. Jiu-jitsu. So you have to learn techniques, and you also need to acquire the specific strength and conditioning. But you know right away what you're learning, what you're putting your effort in, and it's obvious that you are becoming more and more capable with every session. And it's exciting because you're like, yeah, I'm becoming capable. Who doesn't want to be capable? And when you feel that you are, then that's amazing for your self-confidence. And who doesn't want to walk this life or have a bit of self-confidence? Not being cocky, but just knowing what you can do, what are your possibilities, what are your limits. Very important. So if you never check that out, if you never verify How do you know? You may look good in the mirror. That means nothing, but that you look good in the mirror. That means nothing outside. This is not a proof or a guarantee of any form of capability. You could be ruined by a simple jump and landing. You could be defeated by a few miles that you have to run, and for you it's like, what do you mean a few miles? And whereas another person that trains with a different mindset is like, yeah, a few miles, that's great, it's just a warm-up. And they can also lift, and they also have a good looking body, and they can also jump and land on some complex challenging obstacles, and they can also do this and this and this and that and that. So who cares the size of your biceps? Who cares the shape of your chest? It's much less important. It's a bit of a hard sell in today's world because there's Instagram and mirrors and chicks. Yeah, everybody wants to look good, right? Or guys, like so. The aesthetic concern again is legit. I want to look good for as long as I can physically, but most importantly, I want to maintain the self-confidence that I know that I keep maintaining my baseline ability of doing real stuff in the real life, in the real world. Now that I won't compromise with. This, I'm not going to trade better looking body so that or some of those abilities so that I can have a little of a better looking body. I wouldn't. That can be me needing, I don't know, to be there for my children, for my boys, and not being able to respond, or the people I love. And sometimes people, you don't even know who they are, but they just need help. You never know when you're going to need to be ready physically and capable. And you never know if it ever happens, if your training will be enough. But at least you know that you've done what's possible. You've prepared you to the best of your ability, and you've never neglected that area of who you are. And yeah, so it's you see that's based on not just the philosophy, it's just based on a value system, how you see yourself individually, and how you see yourself and your role or your responsibilities within a community, within society.
And for you as well, as a father, the ability to not just be an example to your children, but also teach them some of the abilities that they've developed out in nature. I've only seen from the outside, watching videos that you've posted over the years, some of the incredible feats that they've been able to accomplish. And the value of that as someone from one generation teaching the next generation is another responsibility, right? Like this is a long, ancient human tradition that needs to be carried down, that is very much being lost. And it's the next generation that really benefits from us keeping up some of these skills and developing them as well. So you could argue that that's another massive moral responsibility that many people have missed the boat on, so to speak. And you have definitely been a fantastic example as an educator and a teacher.
I can't even believe that what you just said would be controversial ever
Right.
at any point in
Right.
history. There would be any confusion about that. I got two boys. My boys, your boys. There's no confusion about that. Um, you are not going to grow up to be weaklings. There's no doubt about it. Um, and people may think, oh, he's probably like pushing them and training them every day. Absolutely not. They just do their thing. They're kids. They're innocent. It's in them. It's part of the program. It's built in. I just support it. I encourage them. I tell them, hey, you go play outside. And also they've learned a ton through mimicry. Means leading by example as a dad, as a parent. They see you climb, they see you balance, they see you jump, they see you run, they see you lift, they see you all doing all these things. Well, I do think they're going to be inspired to do the same, because that's how it works. So the example you show is sitting all day, watching shows. I mean, whenever you are not busy working, I don't know, maybe you're even like playing video games for hours. Hey, everybody lives the way they want, but that's the example you're going to show. What makes you think that your kids are ever going to want to be anything different? They're just going to think that's what's required. That's what's normal. That's what's expected from me. So you have to understand what example you are. You need a vision of who you are for yourself before you're a father or parent. And when you become that father or that parent, then because you have a very strong identity, you don't need to show an example. You just are naturally an example. You just keep doing what you do, keep being who you are, and it flows. And then they're going to pick on that, pick on your energy, pick on your behaviors, pick on your activities. That's it. There's no effort to be made. It's just a natural process.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the breath. I've heard you say before as well that the quality of breathing is the quality of life. And it's one of those things that is kind of invisible, but it becomes a superpower if it's something that you practice. I remember years ago, I asked a friend of mine who has coached a number of high performers, professional athletes, if there were just kind of one area that you could practice and apply to a regular Joe or Jane, what would that be? And he said, without hesitation, from the world of coaching these elite professional athletes, he said, breath work, 100%. And why is that? Do you think? And what powers does it give you? How does it change your life if this is something that you actively work on? Because I doubt that very many people in their traditional fancy education were taught very much about the breath at all.
It's an excellent question. I'm going to to ask a question to answer that question. What happens when you remove the breath? What happens when you hold your breath? What's the consequence of that? And everybody knows because everybody has tried or been forced to as a kid. I don't know. Play. Right. It can be brutal and cruel. All right. So what happens? Well, you can't breathe. Hello. You can't breathe. Just that line, can't breathe, feels wrong already. So the importance of breathing already is very quickly understood when you remember how you felt physically, emotionally, and mentally whenever you had or tried to hold your breath for a very long time, or as long as you could. So why is it important to breathe efficiently, optimally, correctly, properly? It doesn't matter how we say it. Because when you don't, it's going to impact your body, your emotional self, and your mind. Because it's going to have implications. Because when we think about breathing, we think about the ventilation part, which is the biomechanical part that the biomechanical pattern through which we get our air and the oxygen in it. So that's typically what we think about when we think about breathing. Depending on the quality of that pattern, its pace, its speed, do you breathe through the nose or through the mouth? Do you breathe through the diaphragm or through upper respiratory muscles? There can be a lot of different parameters involved in that, in making that breathing pattern of yours, let's call it suboptimal, if not in some people inefficient or literally unhealthy. Well, there's going to be an impact on your cellular respiration, which is not your outwardly breathing, it's your inward breathing. It's how your cells breathe, and therefore it has to do with mitochondria and the production of energy by your cells. And that's obviously very important. And when this is not optimum, then your energy levels go down. And when your energy levels go down, it impacts your emotional self and your mental self. So the way you breathe also has a very direct and substantial impact on your nervous system. And your nervous system is you. You don't have a nervous system. You are one. So if that nervous system does not get enough sleep, does not get the right nutrients, does not get frequent movement, does not get sunlight, does not get oxygen, and does not work in a way that keeps the nervous system that you are calm, where is the quality of life? How can you have quality of life and enjoyment of life? It's going to be much more challenging to enjoy your life because of that issue. So all these are pillars of a healthy lifestyle: frequency of movement, quality of sleep, quality of food, nutritious or nutrition-wise, and of course, breathing.
And when you start to focus on your breathing and do some work there, at least for me, I always understand that there is a lot of work to be done. There's always more work to be done. But what is not well understood by most people who haven't kind of explored that avenue of training is how much our personality and certainly our reactivity is dictated by our breathing patterns, by our ability to breathe correctly and oxygenate our tissues in our body and fuel our mitochondria at the right moments, at the moments when someone cuts you off in traffic, or you're having a difficult conversation, or you need to show up even though you didn't get sleep and you haven't eaten that day, whatever it is. And if you practice this, you get more control over being the person who you actually want to be, the person you aspire to be, the person you should be.
The person you want to be, in which reveals itself in the moment of any given context, and how you behave and how pleasant or wise or sensible that behavior is, that response is. If your nervous system is a wreck, it's very likely that you're not going to enjoy how you feel within yourself and how you respond to challenges of life. It's all good when all is all good. It's when we're confronted to stresses, threats, worries, challenges, that what they say, the true self is revealed. How fragile we can be, how maybe not nice we can be, how stressed we can be. And that is okay, because obviously nobody's perfect. And being alive is not easy. It's not easy to be alive. It's not easy to navigate through this biological, a fusion of biological and spiritual experience that is life. Not easy. A lot of knowledge is needed, a lot of insight, a lot of experience, and a lot of practice. So we could say life is a skill. Breathing is a skill, just like movement is a skill. So living well is a skill. When all is good, it's easy. What's difficult, what's challenging truly for most people is not to agitate themselves. They're already agitated. It's to calm down. It's to calm down. It's to calm down. Calm down. That is the true skill. Agitation is not really a skill, except, let's say doing sports or playing music. Things we do are actually controlled agitation, expert agitation. efficient movement is expert agitation. You have to agitate yourself. So it's not saying anything bad agitation. If you're not agitated, what are you, a sloth? A green, like a plant in a pot waiting to have the right amount of sunlight and the right exposure to water and the right soil and things like that. We're not that. We're not those plants. We're animals. We are biological beings, but like we need to go through life. To have a life of our own, we need to have our own agenda, our own pursuits, our own dreams, our own desires, our own occupations, our own responsibilities. All of us, each of us. For that, we need agitation. Now, and controlled agitation, efficient, effective and efficient agitation. Now, this being said, in that pursuit, in that occupation, a lot of it, when I say we, a lot of us, most of us today, find themselves chronically tight, tense, worried, so agitated, but in a way that doesn't feel good, doesn't feel pleasant. And all of us know exactly what I'm talking about. So the skill of shifting ourselves in the direction of trust, in the direction of peace, in the direction of relaxation, that state, when we can bring ourselves and maintain ourselves in that state, we can delve and then dwell in that state out of our own intention. If we become able to do that, well, that's grace. It's a graceful state. There's peace, there's trust or faith, there's love. That's the most pleasant state that ever was. This is where we want to be as often as possible. So how do we get there? There's a path. Have you learned the path? Have you learned a path? And maybe not the path, but you need a path, because otherwise you're stuck in hell. And that hell is called sympathetic dominance. It's a state in which people are chronically stuck on what's called the sympathetic mode, which is the state of their nervous system of arousal. So they're always on. They're always on, and we're always alive, so we're always on, but they're always on in the sense of, again, agitation, alertness, worry. That's not sustainable, because you need to balance that. You need to balance. You need to find a balance. So you need to revert. Going to bed and sleeping, more or less, is not enough. You need to be able to regulate yourself. So who regulate the nervous system? Well, you are a nervous system. So the nervous system learns to regulate itself. And there are many ways to learn how to do that, but intention is number one. Intention is more important than breath, actually. And breath is a very strong, very effective tool. But I'm going to tell you something. I can hold my breath for up to 8 minutes. So not only I cannot obviously use breathing as a tool for regulation, for keeping myself calm and patient, but on top of that, I have to handle for 8 minutes the self-induced stress, neurophysiological stress, that is holding my breath, that is really alarming the body and the nervous system physiologically and emotionally and mentally. And yet I can remain very, very patient and very, very composed the whole time. No breath. So intention, that's what it is about. Breath or no breath, intention. So awareness. And that awareness, you can do anything you want with it. You can be anything you want with it, or you can experience that awareness that you are in so many ways. But in time of challenge, in time of stress, your response, you have to train it. You must practice something, a path, maybe not the path, but a path that's good for you, that enables you to remain composed and patient and positive when everything around you invites you to shift in the complete opposite direction. Do you possess such a skill? Do you have such practice or not? That is the question.
It's so interesting. I kind of fell into valuing the breath accidentally when I was a child, and I started learning woodwind instruments, starting on the clarinet and then the
Me
saxophone.
too.
Did you really? I didn't know that.
Oh, it's so funny. When people ask me, "Oh, so did you learn yoga, pranayama?" And I'm like, "No, no. But you teach breathing, you teach breath work and meditation." And I started to learn breathing when I was 7 years old, and that was actually my clarinet teacher that taught me the foundation of breathing. So it's
Wow.
interesting. And then I learned to hold my breath on vacations about the same age by just swimming underwater in the ocean, etc., etc. So those are universal practices and universal knowledge. So yeah, accidentally. Sorry, I just keep going with your. I'm interested. So you learn clarinet, and what else?
Yeah, and I mean, it's pretty obvious how much breath and breath work enters into that, your ability to play phrases through and control the amount that's coming in at the right moments and then going out and not running out of breath too early. And then that extends to singing as well. One of the great gifts of singing and learning how to sing, especially in a group setting, very similar. If you're over breathing, under breathing, if the air is coming out too fast, if it's uncontrolled, you're going to be a less than stellar singer. And so it's something that you need to naturally work on. And it's for me, it's one of the reasons that I continue to practice music is that nervous system regulation and the breath work. And I'll tell you, when I moved from Texas up to the Rocky Mountains at about 8,000 feet, where we lived for about 5 years, playing saxophone and singing was a completely different experience because you have 20-30% less air to work with, less oxygen to work with. Maybe you can comment on that.
Talk about it because you don't say. I live at elevation. I'm in Santa Fe, so that's the mountains of New Mexico. The elevation is 7,000 something feet. So there is 15%. Well, it's still 21%, but this 15% oxygen percentage in the atmosphere compared to the regular 21%. That's because of partial atmospheric pressure. So it does, you feel it for sure. And yes, so you want to play music and sing, which is turning yourself into a wind instrument. That's what singing is about. So you could be a rock star. And back to my intro line, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. It's with that practice. I mean, life is a practice. It's a practice of energy in many aspects of energy. The better you understand energies, and there's nothing woo-woo about it, it can be explained scientifically. If you don't sleep, you wake up the next morning after not sleeping all night. Let's talk about energy then. You're going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm paying attention because I feel my energy is seriously off or down. So that's we're talking about energy, right? We're talking about energy if, I don't know, you smoke something weird or something funky, or if you eat some, I don't know, really bad junk food, and you're going to feel horrible. Let's talk about energy then. Or you hang out with somebody who is absolutely despicable and you feel drained. Let's talk about energy. Or you hang out with somebody who's an angel, like somebody who's so just beautiful within. Let's talk about energy. Or the next time you have a mood, whatever that mood is, next time you have a tantrum, next time you cry, next time you're completely excited, next time you're confused, next time you're very clear. Let's talk about energy. It's everywhere. Why do you take supplements? Why do you feed yourself a certain way? Energy. Why do you entertain such topic in your mind, or such activity or hobby in your life? Energy. It's about the way all of that, consciously or unconsciously, makes you feel. Being a soul means being consciousness, means being experience. Through what we do, the choices, and the activities, starting with just the activity of awareness, the activity of thinking, the activity of feeling, the activity of being very neutral within, the activity of daydreaming. It's not even external action of our body into the world, but so through what we do, we express who we choose to be, which is the kind of experience that we either want to have. And the experience we want to have, or that we are having, is actually in the moment the experience that we are being. And so life as a skill means becoming more and more in tune with that process. And you said at the beginning that life is such a gift. And you had such a light in you, a light of amazement and gratitude. And that's exactly what a graceful spirit would express. Life is a gift, and therefore it's an amazing, mysterious also opportunity to experience the world and to experience self. So becoming skilled at life is to practice this awareness that's going to enable us to understand cause and correlation, cause and consequence, and how we get to the type of experience that is satisfying to us, that is satisfying, that is gratifying, that is pleasant, that is fulfilling. That's the pursuit of happiness. That's the pursuit of meaning. That's the pursuit of joy. That's the pursuit of love. Who wants to pursue anything that's the opposite of that? Yeah, I'm pursuing shit, man. That's all I want. I want distraction of my life, of myself. I just want complete chaos. Who says that? Who wants that? And so, and in between, you have the people who are, well, it's hard, and yes, it's hard to sort things out, but that's what consciousness is about. That's what the opportunity is about. Nobody said it would be perfect. Nobody said you would not find yourself confused, or sometimes helpless, or distressed, or depressed. That may happen. Actually, it's part of a journey. All of us are going to go through that, because that's how you learn. Okay, what's the path out? What's the path to the experience that I really want? That's my desire. Yeah. So that we realize it or not, the whole thing is a spiritual experience. It's a whole spiritual process. What we typically call spiritual moment is when we remember that it is that. And what meditation is about, because that's what I teach, what meditation is to begin with, it's precisely those moments that happen either randomly or intentionally, where the consciousness that we are remembers itself. It's not distracted and absorbed by everything outside of itself. It remembers itself. It realizes itself. It's with itself. And from that point, it is also able to alter itself, not just to observe itself and let's see what is there. That's the beginning phase. Ultimately, it's about choice, it's about intention. So it's about that consciousness being able to alter itself, to become the experience that it wants. That's a healthy desire. That's a healthy intention. Either you practice or you don't. That is the question.
So one of the things going through your Breathholdwork course and materials that I noticed is that it's quite different from other breathwork styles that I've kind of run into over the years, especially those that incorporate a lot of hyperventilation or the kind of an aggressive control over the breath. Where and not that meditation isn't a part of many of those practices, and that's certainly a way of going about it. But I noticed just how meditative the process of even learning from your videos can be. Almost the state of relaxed trance that you can get into as you're learning. And one of the things that did kind of turn me off from some of the other approaches was how aggressive it was, how aggressively they were trying to meditate, how aggressively they were trying to breathe. And maybe you could just offer a quick counterpoint on how that's not really what you're after and that's not your approach, the importance of the gentle aspect of all of this.
Yes. Well, regarding what you said, trends are real. And when you have a trend, you have players in that trend. And then you have learners or clients, consumers of that trend. That's how it works. And so they have specific expectations. So if you're going to do breath work, you're interested in it, you expect that you're going to do hyperventilation type of exercise because it comes with a territory at the moment. That's where it's at. That's why. Well, we could explain that. We could outline the steps and the history of a trend. But why is it that I do not do this? I don't offer that one bit. Again, it's because, well, to me, that is hyperventilation is the easiest thing to do. What do you learn? And do you learn to actually consciously downregulate, consciously tranquilize your body and your mind, not by agitating yourself? Even though if you go run, if you do exercise intensely, you're going to generate natural endorphins and other neurotransmitters. You're going to feel all your tensions are gone and you're going to feel wonderful. That probably will be more effective, in my opinion, than doing hyperventilation. And you will hyperventilate, by the way. But that's because there's a natural response of your body. You're exerting yourself, you're running. Hello, you're going to hyperventilate. Natural hyperventilation. Now, if you are going to hyperventilate just because it's assumed that it's good for you, but there's no physiological reason to do it, how does that make sense to your nervous system? It makes zero sense whatsoever to your nervous system. And your nervous system does not analyze. It does not, it's not an intellectual process it goes through. And of course, our brain is part of the nervous system. So we're talking about the autonomic nervous system, the part of our nervous system that does not know language and reason. It feels, and it senses, and then it feels. So when you hyperventilate for no reason that your autonomic nervous system can understand, the only explanation, it's a very primitive form of function that's completely designed for our survival. Because sometimes, in a time of survival, it's not thinking that you need, it's just quick response. Thinking is too slow or might not even be accurate. And so the answer to that experience that you mentally, intellectually trigger, you make yourself to hyperventilate. You understand why you're doing that. And you assume what it's going to do to you that supposedly is beneficial. Your autonomic nervous system does not understand what you're trying to do and does not have an experience, or there's no reason, there's no tangible reason. And therefore, it's going to assume or to respond. Basically, hyperventilation equates stress, equates threat. When do you hyperventilate? When you're extremely concerned, when you're very scared, when you're very upset, when you're traumatized, when you're in a panic mode. Yes or no? Yes. Not when you're all feeling good and tranquil and peaceful and all is good in your life. It's when something serious is happening, something highly concerning. And normally you hyperventilate because you're making an effort, means you are trying to move or you are actually moving. And why do you want to move? In our luxurious times, you want to move because that's nice, you dance, or you want to exercise to combat your physical idleness. But normally you move because there, not always, but often it's because there's a danger. So you want to create a separation, a distance between you and a potential threat or a real threat. And that's fight or flight. So typically you hyperventilate because you're moving, you're either fighting off something or you flying or like escaping away from something. Both are threats. So now you're creating a breathing pattern that tells your nervous system, I'm threatened. Is that really what you want? You already probably in sympathetic dominance all the time, always feeling threatened. Why do you feel tight? Why do you feel worried? Why do you overthink, thinking all the time as if you were able to grasp the entire reality or solve everything in your life by just having thoughts about them? And you know it doesn't work. But why? Is it because you feel good? Or is it because you don't feel good? Is it because you feel you're in trust and relaxed about your life? Or is it because you have concerns and worries and you don't feel secure? It's very binary. You feel that way because you feel threatened by life for real reasons or for imaginary reasons. And until you learn to trust and you learn to regulate and you learn to re-experience the opposite of that state, you relearn the path back to a natural state of grace, a natural state of well-being. You will be stuck in that sympathetic dominance because you're afraid that if you were relaxed, you would be vulnerable. You cannot trust relaxation. You cannot trust trust. You cannot trust life. I know it's heavy, but that's what it is. So is hyperventilation going to help you? It's just going to add to that. Or so some say, oh, yes, but then eventually you are going to regulate. Maybe, and maybe not. I've heard a lot of people saying I've done that and then it did nothing to me or it made me feel worse. So it's not like it's a panacea where everybody feels absolutely amazing after they do that breath work. It's as if they turned the mindful practice of breathing into a workout. Breath work. Let's get some work down, people. Breathe hard, harder, harder. Really? So in people who have a very weak respiratory system, training respiratory exercises that look like it should not look like, and it should not be hyperventilation. It should be strong moments of really strengthening, as in, you can do that for your biceps, your shoulders, your legs. You can do that for your diaphragm and for your other respiratory muscles. So you can train those muscles to be stronger. You can train your ribcage to be more flexible. So you can train your lungs to absorb more air and faster. You can train that. But and hyperventilation can do that in some people who have weak breathing. So it literally trains their respiratory muscles and can help a little with lung volume, a little. And that's why there are some benefits. But otherwise, most people, what they need is to learn proper breathing. They learn to make slow nasal and diaphragmatic breathing their reflexive breathing pattern. Reflexive meaning the way you breathe spontaneously at all times without having to make it a workout, without having to make it even a practice. It's just natural. 5, 6, maybe 8 breath cycles per minute at rest, taken through the nose, driven from the diaphragm. That's it. That's what you want to learn. You do not want to learn hyperventilation. That's not how you breathe. That's not a desirable way to breathe. So, and that's probably already how most people breathe. Just exaggerated. Means most people breathe with a mouth, even intermittently. Not most people, but a number of people. And most people, however, do breathe too fast or faster than they should or could. So I teach people a number of exercises. There's not just one. There's not a single one-size-fits-all exercise that a 5-year-old could learn in 20 seconds. There's a series of exercises, and exercises, some of them are breathing exercises, some of them have to do with moving intrathoracic pressure from the mouth to the lungs, lung to the mouth, controlling the soft palate. And then a lot of those techniques are techniques of the mind, because eventually when you will not breathe, you will not only have, again, the stress of not breathing, and on top of that, you won't be able to use breathing to cope and regulate. So what are the techniques that are going to be still left available to you to calm yourself down, to remain composed, to maintain clarity of your mind, to keep yourself in trust and patience? What it is? The mind itself. So how do you teach your mind to be able to do that and to be that? And who is that who that teaches the mind? Well, it's the mind itself that teaches itself. But sometimes the mind needs to be taught. That's why education matters. So that's why I teach what I teach. What I teach is exactly what enables me to hold my breath for that long. And if you ask me if, are physiological adaptations part of your ability to hold your breath that long? Yes, of course. At this level, absolutely. Means better production of red blood cells. I'll probably have, more RBC count than anybody or than most people. So more blood quality, more blood quantity. I have super strong cerebral blood flow. I have a enlarged spleen, but that's naturally, not a health condition. So that I can have a pouch, a reserve of highly oxygenated blood. All these things. But without the mind deciding and making itself, deciding what experience it wants to have through that stress, and being able to make itself to produce that experience. If I was really not in the zone, not preparing myself to hold my breath, I'm going to tell you something. Even a 4 minutes breath hold would be very hard. So the physiology only plays a part. If the mind is not present, it's an ordeal. The only way to go through that stress is to learn that meditation or in the mind to know exactly what it is doing, what's up, and how to do it. And guess what? What about life? Isn't it the same after all? How do we manage ourselves through life? We can't manage the world. We cannot manage others. We barely manage the inside of our car or the mechanics of it or the inside of our home. Maybe there's dirty dishes in the sink, a whole pile of dirty clothes, and maybe we haven't, cleaned that place for a long time, or we can't fix a bulb. I don't know. So what about the inside of us, the inside of ourselves, within, not the body, but the mind? And the body matters too, but the mind. How do you manage the mind of yours? Because if you don't, then what is going to be what you call your life, which is a succession, an ongoing, uninterrupted succession of experiences? It's going to be pretty random, isn't it? And at the same time, it's going to be also pretty predictable because it's unexamined and you've never done anything about it. There's no self-growth. So there's no evolution, or there's going to be an evolution. Typically, that's not going to be a positive one. You become more bitter, you become more stressed, you become more depressed, not the other way around. So how do you flip the script? You got to make a decision, and then you need a pathway. You need a method. You need that. It doesn't happen like that. Nobody's going to knock at your door one day and they may offer you a conversion to a religion, but nobody's going to knock the door and say, hey, here, I'm going to just completely change your mind. It means make your mind beautiful, shiny, clear, composed, strong, resilient, generous, compassionate, respectful, all the good qualities. Nobody. So if you don't do it, who will?
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Man, there's so much more I want to talk about. I always enjoy our get-togethers and conversations. But what is the best place to find your work that's coming up? Breathholdwork.com is one. What else is coming next? What can people look forward to? And where else can people find your work?
Okay, so we started with this new episode with, again, MovNat. MovNat means moving naturally, moving in nature. It's the leading education platform and team and company for what I've coined many years ago as being natural movement. I have a book, by the way, The Practice of Natural Movement, available on Amazon, and we provide real life certification training or certification events. We also have e-courses and e-books, and so there's a lot to find there for your real world, real life, physical capability education. And then, yes, like you said, the Breathholdwork, as it spells, breathholdwork.com. It's like breathwork, but you add hold in between. So there's breath work and Breathholdwork, and it's a meditation. So you learn to breathe efficiently, learn to hold your breath, and you learn the meditation that comes with it so that you can do this in a way that is pleasant and rewarding. So it's not a sport, it's not a competition. It's not about pushing yourself so hard that it's so hard. No, it's actually learning to make it pleasant. And it's incredible how you can literally learn to fly in your mind while you're holding your breath. So there's that. There's an e-course on it. I also have a live program every few months. The groups, they are always sold out. And because of fantastic, very blessed with a wonderful word of mouth. And what else can you expect? I am writing a book about breath holding and meditation. It won't be a how-to book. For that, I have the e-course. It will be more like a realistic novel with lots of different dots that I'm going to line up and connect for people. A little like The Breath, great book, Breath by James Nestor, except it will be about breath holding. I'm going to talk about the origin of oxygen, the origin of RN, I want to talk about very fascinating topics, and it will somehow look like they are different topics, and in the end, you bring everything together like, oh, okay, voila. So, that's what I'm working on. Hopefully 2025 will be when I release that book.
Right on. I look forward to reading that. And anyone who's curious about breath work, breath hold work, I wholeheartedly encourage you to check out Erwan's course because it's one of the best I've ever seen in that regard, and really one of the best kind of virtual learn from afar courses I've ever seen. Period. So, kudos to you, and I look forward to our next chat.
Amazing. Made my day. Thank you so much.
Hey there, thanks so much for joining us on this episode of the Fat Burning Man Show. Before you go, please hit like and subscribe, or even better, leave us a quick review, which helps other people find their way to this free show. We've recorded over 400 episodes of this award-winning show over the past decade and change, and you can watch every single episode for free at fatburningman.com. So if you can think of a friend or a family member who might enjoy and benefit from our work, please take a quick second to share it with someone you care about. Thank you so much for all of your reviews, comments, likes, emails, and the kind words you send our way. We couldn't do any of this without you. Now, a quick disclaimer. The Fat Burning Man Show provides general information and discussions about health and related subjects and is not intended as medical advice, nor is the information a substitute for professional medical expertise, diagnosis, or treatment. If you or any other person has a medical concern, I wholeheartedly encourage you to consult with your healthcare provider. Now, before I sign off, don't forget to join our newsletter at fatburningman.com. When you sign up with your email, I'll send you a wild quick start guide along with a few of our ridiculously tasty recipes. This is Abel James signing off. Thanks so much for listening and have a great week.